standing in my childhood driveway with rain soaking through my clothes, holding a trash bag full of everything I owned. I watched my father slam the door on 18 years of lies. But when that black Mercedes pulled up and the driver said those 7 words, I realized my real life was just beginning. Hello, friends. Before we dive into today's story, please help me grow this channel by subscribing, sharing this video with others, and don't forget to hit that like button. Now, let's get started with our story. My name is Garrett Lawson, or at least that's what I've been called for 18 years. The man who just threw me out like yesterday's garbage is Vernon Lawson, the person I called Dad my entire life. The woman crying behind the living room curtains is my mother, Diane, who apparently kept the biggest secret imaginable from everyone, including me. And the teenage girl pressing her face against the upstairs window is my sister, Phoebe, though I guess she's only half my sister now. 30 minutes ago, I was blowing out 18 candles on a birthday cake in front of family, friends, business partners, and half our neighborhood. Vernon had insisted on making it a big production, which should have been my first warning. Vernon never celebrated anything that didn't directly benefit him. He stood there in his $3,000 suit, holding a glass of whiskey that cost more than most people's car payments, and announced to everyone that I wasn't his son. He had DNA test results, printed emails, the works. He'd been planning this moment, waiting for the exact second I turned 18 so he could legally throw me out without consequences. The rain started falling just as he shoved me off the porch, because apparently even the weather wanted to make this moment more dramatic. The trash bag he'd given me to pack my belongings split when it hit the pavement, scattering my clothes across the driveway. I was on my knees, grabbing soaking wet t-shirts and jeans when I heard the smooth purr of an expensive engine. The black Mercedes S-Class that pulled up looked like it had just rolled off the showroom floor. The man behind the wheel was probably in his 60s with silver hair and wearing a suit. That made Vernon's look like it came from a discount store. When he rolled down the window and looked at me with eyes that seemed to recognize something in my face, he spoke 7 words that changed everything. Your real inheritance starts tonight. Garrett Cross, not Lawson. He used a name I'd never heard before, but somehow knew was mine. In that moment, kneeling in a puddle with my entire life scattered around me, I realized that Vernon throwing me out wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of finding out who I really was. The driver's name was Richard Aldrich, though I didn't know it yet, and he'd been waiting 18 years to deliver a message from a father I never knew existed. Vernon thought he was punishing me by revealing I wasn't his blood. He thought he was stripping me of everything that mattered. But standing there in the rain, watching this stranger look at me like I was someone worth waiting for, I understood that Vernon had actually just set me free. The trash bag at my feet held clothes, but the Mercedes idling in front of me held answers to questions I didn't even know I should be asking. This is the story of how I lost the only family I'd ever known and found the father who'd been looking out for me all along, even from beyond the grave. It's about learning that blood doesn't make a father, but apparently it does make an inheritance. And it's about discovering that sometimes when someone tells you that you don't belong, they're actually doing you the biggest favor of your life. The man I'd called Dad for 18 years stood behind his front door, probably already calculating how much money he'd saved by not having to pay for my college. The mother who'd lied to protect me was sobbing in a house she might lose. The sister who still loved me was texting me frantically, her messages lighting up my phone even as it got pelted with rain. And a complete stranger was offering me a future that my real father had carefully planned before I was even born. Vernon Lawson thought he was ending my story that night. He had no idea he was actually starting it, because when you throw away something that was never yours to begin with, you don't get to control where it lands. And I was about to land somewhere Vernon could never reach. In the life my real father had built for me, one calculated decision at a time, one investment at a time, one letter at a time, just waiting for me to turn 18 and claim it. The boy, who'd been tolerated for 18 years, was about to become the man who was always wanted. I just had to get in the car first. The Lawson family looked perfect from the outside. Vernon had built his real estate empire from nothing, and our colonial house in Westchester screamed success. 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a pool that was heated year-round, and a garage that housed Vernon's collection of luxury cars. Every Sunday, neighbors saw us heading to church in Vernon's Range Rover, looking like we'd stepped out of a catalog. Phoebe would be texting in the back seat while Mom stared out the window, and I'd be reviewing college applications or homework, trying to earn the approval that never came. Growing up, I noticed things other kids might have missed. How Mom would flinch when Vernon raised his voice, even when he was just talking on the phone. How Phoebe got cars for her 16th birthday and credit cards with no limits, while I got lectures about earning my keep and learning the value of hard work. Vernon would say, "Garrett, you need to understand struggle. Foo's different. She's got my blood, my instincts." At the time, I thought he meant she was naturally better at business. Now I know he meant it literally. That morning, my 18th birthday, started like any other day in the Lawson house, except Mom was trying harder than usual to make it special. She'd gotten up early to make pancakes from scratch, not the frozen kind we usually had. She'd even shaped them into hearts, something she hadn't done since I was 10. When I came downstairs, she had 18 candles stuck in the stack, the wax already dripping onto the maple syrup. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," she whispered, but her hand shook, setting down the plate. She kept glancing at the stairs, listening for Vernon's footsteps. Her eyes were red-rimmed like she'd been crying, but she'd covered it with makeup. "I made your favorite blueberry with extra butter." Vernon hadn't come down yet, which was unusual. He was typically at the breakfast table by 7 sharp, reading the Wall Street Journal on his iPad and making everyone else feel lazy for not being up earlier. His absence felt like a storm cloud gathering on the horizon. Phoebe bounced into the kitchen, still in her pajamas. "So, what kind of car do you think Dad will finally break down and get you? I mean, 18 is a big deal. Even he can't ignore that. Dad says real men buy their own first car," I told her, repeating Vernon's favorite line. I'd heard it so many times I could recite it in my sleep. "Builds character, teaches responsibility." Phoebe rolled her eyes. "That's such garbage. He bought me a BMW for literally no reason except it was Tuesday and he felt like it." "Language, Phoebe," Mom said automatically, but her heart wasn't in the correction. She kept wringing a dish towel in her hands, twisting it until her knuckles went white. "Mom, you okay?" I asked, noticing how she kept checking her phone, face getting paler with each glance. She touched my shoulder, her hand cold even through my shirt. "Garrett, there's something I need to tell you before." Vernon's footsteps thundered down the stairs, cutting her off mid-sentence. He moved with the deliberate weight of someone who wanted everyone to know he was coming. Mom stepped back from me like she'd touched something hot. "Good morning, family." His voice had an edge that made the room temperature drop 10 degrees. He was already dressed in one of his power suits, the charcoal gray one he wore to close big deals or fire people. Big day today. "Garrett's 18. He said it like it was a death sentence, not a celebration. "Morning, Dad," I said, trying to read his mood. With Vernon, you had to be careful. His tempers were legendary in the real estate world. I'd seen grown men cry in our home office after one of his tirades. He walked over to the coffee maker, movements precise and controlled. "Your mother's been busy this morning. Pancakes and everything. Very domestic." The word dripped with sarcasm. "Tell me, Garrett, are you ready to be a man?" "I guess so, you guess?" He turned, coffee mug in hand, steam rising between us. "Either you are or you aren't. Men don't guess. They know." "I'm ready," I said firmly, though something in his smile made my stomach twist. "Good. Because tonight at dinner we're going to have a very important conversation about your future. I've invited some people over. Business associates, family friends, even that girl you're dating. What's her name? Tessa. Right, Tessa. Her parents, too. Should be quite the birthday party." He took a long sip of coffee, eyes never leaving mine. Quite the revelation. The birthday dinner was planned for 6 sharp. Vernon had insisted on using the formal dining room, the one we only used for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Mom spent the entire day cooking and cleaning, moving through the house like a ghost. Every time I tried to talk to her, she'd find another task that urgently needed doing. The silver needed polishing. The good china had to be hand-washed. The tablecloth needed pressing. By 5:30, guests were arriving. Vernon's business partners came first, Harold Blackstone with his new wife, who looked younger than his daughter. The Mitchell brothers, who owned half the commercial real estate in town, and Judge Brennan, who'd helped Vernon close some questionable deals over the years. Then came the neighbors, the ones Vernon actually respected because they had money. Finally, Tessa arrived with her parents, looking beautiful in the blue dress I'd bought her for homecoming. "Happy birthday, babe," she whispered, kissing my cheek. "Why does this feel more like a funeral than a party?" She wasn't wrong. The atmosphere was suffocating. Vernon stood at the bar pouring drinks with mechanical precision, watching everyone like a predator studying prey. Phoebe kept trying to lighten the mood, chatting about her upcoming school play. But even she could feel the tension coiling tighter with each passing minute. When everyone was seated around the massive oak table, Vernon remained standing at the head. He clinked his whiskey glass with a silver spoon, the sound cutting through conversations like a blade. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate Garrett's 18th birthday," he began, his voice carrying that courtroom authority he'd perfected over decades of business deals. "That's how long it's been since this young man entered my house." The room went quiet. Mom's fork clattered against her plate, the sound sharp in the silence. "I want to tell you all a story," Vernon continued, loosening his tie like he was about to deliver a long sermon. "Years ago, my wife came to me with a baby. She was crying, desperate. The father had died," she said. "Military man, war hero. Very touching story. I was young, successful, in love. I said yes without asking enough questions. That was my first mistake." "Vernon, please." Mom's voice was barely a whisper, but everyone heard it. He ignored her completely. "My second mistake was not getting a paternity test immediately. But you trust your wife, right? You believe in family. You raise a child as your own. Give him your name, your resources, your time. You try to make him into something even when you notice he doesn't have your ambition, your drive, your natural instincts for success." My heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. Tessa grabbed my hand under the table, squeezing tight. Vernon pulled out a manila envelope from inside his suit jacket, holding it up like evidence in court. "Months ago, I finally decided to answer the question that had been nagging me for years. Why was Garrett so different from Phoebe? Why did he look nothing like me? Why did his mother get so nervous every time I looked at him too long?" He opened the envelope with theatrical slowness, pulling out papers covered in graphs and percentages. "DNA test. Results. Probability of paternity 0%. Garrett. Here isn't my son. Never was." Tessa gasped. The neighbors exchanged shocked looks. Harold Blackstone actually smiled like he was enjoying the show. Judge Brennan set down his wine glass with careful precision. Phoebe's mouth hung open, her face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and horror. Vernon turned to me, his eyes cold as winter frost. "Your mother had an affair with some nobody named Benjamin Cross, army grunt who got himself killed before you were born. I've been raising another man's bastard for 18 years, paying for private schools, soccer camps, college prep courses. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on someone who isn't even mine. Dad?" "I didn't know," I managed to say, my voice cracking like I was 13. "Again, don't call me that." His voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "I'm not your father. Never. Was. Your father is dead, and your mother is a liar who committed fraud for nearly 2 decades. Mom stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Tears were streaming down her face, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Your biological father was Benjamin Cross. He died in Afghanistan 2 months before you were born. I was scared. Alone, pregnant. Vernon promised to take care of us. He promised." Vernon laughed, the sound bitter and hollow. "And I kept that promise for 18 years too long. But it ends tonight. You're 18 now. Garrett, legal adult. Pack your things. You've got 10 minutes to get out of my house." Standing in my room, shoving clothes into the black trash bag Phoebe had handed me, my mind raced through 18 years of memories that suddenly made sense. Every cold shoulder, every comparison to Phoebe, every time Vernon looked at me like I was an intruder in his perfect family. The signs had always been there. I just hadn't known how to read them. My hands moved mechanically, grabbing jeans from drawers, pulling shirts off hangers. The room I'd lived in since I was born felt foreign now, like I was trespassing. The baseball trophies on the shelf, the academic achievement awards, the photos of family vacations where I always seemed to be standing slightly apart from the others. Everything was a lie, but it had been my lie, my life. "Garrett," Phoebe whispered from my doorway, her face streaked with mascara. "This is insane. You're still my brother. I don't care what Dad says." "Not according to Vernon," I said, stuffing my high school yearbook into the bag. At least that had my real friends in it. People who liked me for who I was, not whose son they thought I was. "Stop calling him that. He's Dad. He's always been Dad. Not mine, apparently." I grabbed my laptop, then hesitated. Vernon had bought it for my 16th birthday, one of the few gifts he'd ever seemed happy to give me. Now, I knew why. It was probably tax-deductible as a charitable donation. Vernon appeared behind Phoebe, filling the doorframe with his presence. "Minutes, boy. And leave the laptop. I paid for it. Leave the watch. Too, and the phone after you clear your personal data." I dropped the MacBook on my bed, pulled off the watch he'd given me for graduating with honors, and started factory resetting my phone. My entire digital life erased in seconds, just like my place in this family. "What about Mom?" I asked, meeting his eyes for the first time since his announcement. "You're punishing her. Too, she made her choice 18 years ago. Now, she lives with the consequences. The divorce papers are already drawn up. Fraud has legal implications. She'll be lucky if I don't press criminal charges. You wouldn't dare," Phoebe said, finding her voice. "Mom didn't do anything wrong." Vernon turned his cold gaze on his daughter, his real daughter. "She lied for 18 years. That's fraud. Sweetheart, she let me spend money on another man's child under false pretenses. Any court in the country would side with me." From downstairs, I could hear the guests leaving, their voices low and embarrassed. This would be all over town by tomorrow. Vernon Lawson's fake son, the scandal would probably help his business somehow. Vernon had a way of turning everything to his advantage on minutes. Vernon announced, checking his Rolex. "Whatever isn't in that bag stays here." I grabbed the photo of Mom and me from when I was 5, the one where she was teaching me to ride a bike. Vernon wasn't in it. Now I understood why. I took the leather jacket from high school, the one I'd earned playing varsity soccer for 3 years. My cleats were in the closet, but I left them. Where I was going, I wouldn't need them. "Garrett, wait." Mom appeared in the hallway, pushing past Vernon. "Take this." She pressed something into my hand. It was a folded piece of paper and $300 in cash. "It's all I have that he doesn't monitor." "Diane, you're interfering with a legal eviction," Vernon said, his voice carrying that lawyer's precision he used like a weapon. "He's my son." "Exactly. Your son, not mine. You want to help him? You can join him on the street." Mom looked at me, then at Phoebe, then back at Vernon. I could see her calculating, weighing 18 years of security against maternal instinct. The hesitation told me everything. She was going to stay. She had to. Phoebe was only 16, Mom. Couldn't leave her alone with Vernon. "I understand," I said, letting her off the hook. "Take care of Phoebe." Outside, the rain had started, a cold October drizzle that felt like needles on exposed skin. Vernon's guests were pulling out of the driveway in their luxury cars, none of them making eye contact with me. Tessa's father had his arm around her, practically dragging her to their BMW. She looked back once, mouthing, "I'm sorry," before her father pushed her into the car. Vernon followed me onto the porch, watching as I descended the steps with my one trash bag of possessions. "Don't come back. If you set foot on this property, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. If you contact Diane or Phoebe, I'll file a restraining order. You wanted to be a man at—" Congratulations, men. Face consequences." He shoved me off the last porch step, harder than necessary. The trash bag split when it hit the wet driveway, spilling my clothes across the asphalt. As I scrambled to gather them, Vernon shut the door. The porch light went off. The message was clear. I no longer existed here. The black Mercedes S-Class pulled up silently, its headlights cutting through the rain like lighthouse beacons. The engine purred with the kind of refined power that Vernon always pretended to have, but never quite achieved. I was still on my knees, gathering soaked clothes from the pavement when the driver's window rolled down with a smooth electric whisper. Garrett Lawson. The man's voice was cultured, patient, nothing like Vernon's sharp bark. I nodded, too confused and exhausted to speak. Water dripped from my hair into my eyes. Mixing with what I refused to acknowledge were tears. My name is Richard Aldrich. I've been waiting 18 years to meet you. Your real inheritance starts tonight. I stood slowly, clutching my ruined clothes against my chest. I don't understand. Who are you? I was your father's best friend and business partner. Benjamin Cross. May I suggest you put those clothes in my trunk and get in the car? You're soaking wet, and we have much to discuss. The interior of the Mercedes was warm, soft leather and subtle cologne, replacing the cold rain and humiliation. Aldrich handed me a towel from the center console as if he'd been prepared for exactly this scenario. He probably had been. Your father, Benjamin Cross, was my best friend since college. Aldrich began, pulling away from Vernon's house with unhurried confidence. We started a technology company together. Right after graduation, he was the genius. Behind the code, I handled the business side. When he enlisted after 9/11, I tried to talk him out of it. He had a gift, a mind that could solve problems others couldn't. Even see. My mom never mentioned any of this. She didn't know Ben wanted it that way. He knew Vernon Lawson's reputation. The man had already been sniffing around Diane when Ben was deployed. Vernon liked collecting beautiful, vulnerable things. When Ben realized he might not come back, he made provisions. Aldrich pulled into a parking garage I recognized as belonging to the Four Seasons. Before he deployed for his last tour, Ben set up a trust fund in your name. I've been managing it, growing it, waiting for you to turn. 18, we took an elevator to the penthouse floor. Aldrich led me to a suite that was bigger than the first floor of Vernon's house, floor to ceiling. Windows showed the city lights, blinking through the rain. On a mahogany desk sat several documents and a manila envelope much thicker than the one Vernon had used to destroy my life. Sit, Aldrich said gently, pouring himself scotch from a crystal decanter. Would you like something? Water, coffee? Water, please, I said, my voice rough, like I'd been screaming, though I hadn't made a sound. During Vernon's performance, Aldrich handed me a bottle of water and opened the manila envelope. Your father owned 30% of Aldrich Technologies. We develop encryption software for government contracts. His patents alone generate $2 million a year in royalties. It's all been accumulating in your trust. He spread out financial statements across the desk. Numbers that didn't seem real, columns of figures that added up to more money than Vernon had ever dreamed of. The current value of your holdings is approximately $50 million. Aldrich continued as casually as if discussing the weather. There's also this. He handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in handwriting I'd never seen. Before Ben wrote this for your 18th birthday, he made me promise to deliver it personally. Hands shook as I opened it. The letter inside was dated just weeks before my birth. Son, it began. If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it back. I'm sorry I won't be there to teach you to throw a baseball or drive a car. I'm sorry I won't see you graduate or get married or have children of your own. But I'm not sorry I served. I believe in protecting the future, and you are that future. I had to stop reading for a moment, the words blurring. I've left you more than money. The trust includes patents for technologies that will shape the next generation of cybersecurity. Aldrich will teach you the business, if you want to learn. There's also a house, my family's estate in Connecticut. Your grandmother, my mother, still lives there. She's been waiting to meet you, though she's respected your mother's wishes to stay distant until now. The letter continued with details about accounts, properties, and possibilities I couldn't fully process. But the last paragraph hit hardest. Vernon Lawson will probably raise you. I know what kind of man he is. Cold, calculating, conditional in his affections. When he discovers you're not his blood, he'll throw you away. That's why everything is timed for your 18th birthday. Let him think he's won by discarding you. Then claim what I've built for you. Show him that real fathers plan for their children's future. Even from beyond the grave, love. Dad, Aldrich refilled my water glass. Your father predicted this night down to the detail. He even guessed it would be raining. Said, Vernon had a flair for drama and would probably orchestrate something theatrical. He knew Vernon would do this. He suspected Ben was brilliant at pattern recognition. It's what made him such a good programmer. He could see how systems would behave before they were even built. Vernon was just another system to analyze. Months later, I stood in the Aldrich Technologies boardroom, presenting my first project proposal to a room full of executives who actually wanted to hear my ideas. The grandson of Benjamin Cross. Finally, where I belonged, the software I'd developed with Aldrich's mentorship was already generating interest from 3 government agencies. Turns out I'd inherited more than money from my father. I'd inherited his gift for seeing patterns in code, for solving problems that others couldn't even identify. Mom divorced Vernon after he tried to claim she owed him 18 years of child support. That was his biggest mistake, getting greedy when he should have stayed quiet. Aldrich's legal team, led by attorneys who made Vernon look like an ambulance chaser, destroyed him in court. They presented evidence of emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and fraud that went back decades. Turns out Vernon had been hiding assets from the IRS for years, something that came to light when Mom's lawyers started digging. She got the house, half his assets, and full custody of Phoebe. Vernon got an audit and a criminal investigation. Phoebe visits me every weekend at my Manhattan apartment, a 3-bedroom penthouse that overlooks Central Park. She's different now, more thoughtful, less entitled. You know what's funny? She said last week, curled up on my couch with her SAT prep books, "Dad always said blood matters most." He was right. Just not how he thought. You found your real family because of blood. And I learned who my father really is because of how he treated someone who didn't share. Vernon's real estate empire crumbled faster than anyone expected. Word got out about what he'd done at that birthday dinner. His business partners, many of whom were fathers themselves, pulled their investments. Harold Blackstone, who I thought was enjoying the show that night, was the first to withdraw his backing. "I've done questionable things in business," he told me when we ran into each other at a charity gala. "But throwing out a kid you raised for 18 years? That's not business, that's cruelty." The Mitchell brothers bought Vernon's properties at foreclosure prices. Judge Brennan recused himself from Vernon's criminal case, claiming conflict of interest. Within 3 months, Vernon went from king of Westchester real estate to a cautionary tale whispered about at country club dinners. I met my grandmother, Eleanor Cross, at the Connecticut estate on a snowy December morning. The house was everything Vernon's had pretended to be, genuine old money elegance without the desperate need to impress. She held my face in her weathered hands and cried for 10 minutes before saying a word. "You have Ben's eyes," she finally managed, "the same intensity, the same kindness. He would be so proud of what you've become, not because of the money, but because of how you've handled yourself with grace." She showed me photo albums filled with pictures of my father, him in his army uniform, him at MIT getting his computer science degree, him with Aldrich. Both of them young and confident, standing in front of their first office, a converted garage with a handwritten sign, him holding a sonogram picture, my first photo, with a smile that could have lit up the world. The letter from my father sits framed on my desk at Aldrich Technologies, right next to a photo Eleanor gave me of him in Afghanistan writing code on a laptop in a tent. "Son, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it back. I'm sorry I won't be there to teach you to throw a baseball or drive a car. But I made sure you'd be okay. Real inheritance isn't money, though I've left you plenty of that. It's knowing who you are and where you come from. You come from love, even if I couldn't be there to show it. You come from innovation, from service, from sacrifice. Live well, live freely, live knowing you were wanted and planned for. Every line of code I wrote, every patent I filed, every investment I made was for you. Love, Dad." Tessa reached out after 3 months of silence. Her father had forbidden her from contacting me, but she was 18 now too. We met for coffee and she apologized for that night. "I should have stood up to my parents," she said. "I should have stayed." I told her it was okay. We were both kids then, trying to navigate our parents' worlds. We're friends now, nothing more. That chapter closed the night Vernon slammed his door. Vernon taught me that conditional love is no love at all. But Ben, a father I never met, taught me that real love plans for your future, even when it can't be there to see it. Real love writes code that generates millions. So your son never goes hungry. Real love leaves letters for birthdays you won't attend. Real love makes sure that when the false father reveals his nature, the real father's protection activates. Standing in that rain, holding that trash bag, I thought I'd lost everything. Instead, I found out who I really was. Sometimes the family that raises you isn't the one that claims you, and sometimes your real inheritance isn't what someone leaves you, but discovering you were worth planning for all along. The boy who was thrown away became the man who was always meant to be, and that black Mercedes pulling up in the rain. It wasn't just a car, it was my real father's love arriving exactly when he knew I'd need it. Most executed with military precision and a programmer's attention to detail. Vernon thought he was writing the end of my story that night. He didn't realize he was just a bug in my father's code, an error Ben had already programmed around. And like any good programmer, my father had built in a solution that would execute at exactly the right moment. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt like you didn't belong or discovered that rejection was actually redirection, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their real inheritance might be different from what they expect. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories about finding family in unexpected places, about love that transcends death, and about fathers who protect their children from places we can't even see. Sometimes the best fathers are the ones who plan for our future before we even exist. Sometimes being thrown away is just another way of being set free.